news anchor in Southern California for nearly 30 years, Carol LeBeau covered some of the nation's most important stories. For most of her career, Carol covered health news for San Diego ABC 10, reporting nightly on the latest medical breakthroughs and technologies. But staying healthy was more than a TV news assignment for Carol. It's a way of life. She runs, bikes, and is a ranked Masters rough water swimmer. Carol left her day-to-day news anchoring job to work as a freelance journalist and a motivational speaker. She and her husband, Tom, a retired Navy pilot, live in Coronado. Let's put our hands together and thank her for being here again. Carol LeBeau.
Thank you, Paul. By the way, Carol Skilgen is here. If you're here, would you come to the stage? Carol Skilgen, we're going to need you front and center at one point. Welcome, everyone. It's just been an unbelievable experience over the last 10 years to see this event grow. I mean, sadly, it's because many of us have lost someone to suicide. I lost my mother to suicide 33 years ago due to end-stage untreated depression. I was 26 years old, and I had enjoyed a mother who was fully involved in our lives, but constantly pushing through and trying to gut through the depression and anxiety and despair that enveloped her. You know, my friend Connie Kennemer, who lost her sweet son, put it this way. She said, people who, because I watched my mother fight so valiantly. This was not something that was her choice or that she wanted to do. But you know, people commit suicide very often, not because they want to die, not because they want to kill themselves, it's because they just want to stop the pain. And that's the case with my mother, which was a tragic loss. But I do find comfort knowing that she no longer, has to fight a devastating illness over which she had no control. What made it unbearable at the time was the reaction to my mom's death. It was never discussed. My dad didn't discuss it. My sister and brother and I never discussed it. Our friends and neighbors wouldn't talk about it. Even our pastor wouldn't look us in the eye because of it. Had it been cancer or heart disease or complications from diabetes, there would have been a lot of talking and hugging and comforting. But that back then, what happened to my mother was unspeakable. Nobody discussed it. I was hurt and a little angry then, but over the years I came to understand that in those days there was so little known about mental illness that many actually believed that diseases of the mind were a form of demon possession. And it's not that long before that, but that other illnesses like cancer and epilepsy were also associated and put in the same category. See, knowledge is power. And what we don't know can be scary, so it's just a lot easier to attach a stigma, to something that we don't understand. But sadly, in some circles, 3 decades later, since I've lost my mother, that stigma still exists. And that makes me mad. We're smarter than that. We know better today. In the hands of trained professionals, diagnosis and treatment of most depressive disorders is entirely effective, and still many suffer in silence because of this lingering stigma. I know, because along with my mom's curly hair, I inherited her mental illness. In my case, I was 34 when the depression and anxiety overwhelmed me, and I was sure at that point in my life that life as I knew it was probably over. But I was lucky. I live in a different time than my mother lived. I live in a time when something can be done to help people suffering most forms of mental illness. And unlike my sweet mom, I had support from trusted friends, colleagues, and a husband who's never known a depressed day in his life. And by the way, parenthetically, let me take a moment and address that issue. I know there are a lot of you out there who just have no idea what it's like to be depressed. You're supportive, but I'm tired of people saying, well, I don't understand. I don't understand why he can't just, try a little harder, buck up, suck it up. That is such a form of ignorance that it just makes me want to scream. Is there anyone out there who has asthma or any upper respiratory, breathing issues? There's a lady. Okay, you know what? For some reason, with all the problems I've had in my life, I have healthy lungs. Deep breath in. Feels good. I can hold my breath. I have strong lungs. Ma'am, I don't understand why you can't breathe better. Why don't you just try a little harder? Why don't you just buck up, suck it up? I mean, is that the most foolish thing you've ever heard? Just because you've never experienced it doesn't mean that you can't accept it. I digress. An excellent psychiatrist worked with me until we found the right medication. A caring psychologist helped me learn what role I could play in my recovery, and within weeks, literally after finding the right medication, my symptoms began to subside, and I slowly got back my joy. Now, I still have depression. It's a chronic condition, and it has to be managed. And I gratefully take my medication every day. That's my part in all of this. It's no big deal, really. So why all the discomfort and shame and behind the back whispers when it comes to mental illness? With all that can go wrong with our bodies, would someone please tell me who decided that the brain, with all its complex chemistry that controls so much of who we are, our emotions, our sleep patterns, our appetites, you name it, somebody decided that that part of our body can't have a hiccup? I could, after all, have chronic asthma, as the lady here, severe allergies, insulin-dependent diabetes, or high blood pressure, and feel free to discuss it with absolutely anyone. You see, no one should be made to feel guilty or at fault because of a medical condition, and no one should have to put up with the paralyzing symptoms of depression or anxiety or any other of a host of mental disorders when treatment is available. We have to be on our guard, folks. We've got to be paying attention to those around us and to start recognizing the symptoms and the warning signs and the red flags. I just like to thank every one of you for being here today. God bless you for your efforts. I know some of you have struggled, or you're grieving the loss of someone who you've lost to mental illness in the form of suicide. My heart goes out to you. I still miss my mom. And I am certain without medical intervention, I would have been another statistic. So let's, folks, start talking about it. Let's keep talking about it. Let's grow this event even bigger every year. Together we can be that powerful voice that insists that mental illness get the same respect from as any other medical condition. So thank you for doing your part as we erase the stigma of mental illness for good. God bless.